Let's walk through the Turbonomic 8 migration utility. Using your Turbonomic 6 installation, you can see that we've got some content here. We've already got our full supply chain populated with a number of different cloud and on-premises targets. So go to github.com/Turbonomic and you can download the latest TB Migrate utility, which is a small zip file which you download to your source instance on Turbonomic 6. We can see what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and curl and download the file. Once we download the file, it's a small utility. We're going to simply unzip it using the tar command here. So we do tar-zxvf tb migrate. This creates a tb migrate folder. Let's change into the tb migrate folder and we launch our utility now very easily following the instructions which are available in the documentation site. You can follow this link below. So let's launch the menu file by using menu.sh. And it's a completely self-driven menu, and you can see it's actually got the steps laid out. So we begin with step number 1. Let's set up our credentials. As a safety measure, we warned you that we are going to turn off actions in the target instance on Turbonomic 8, just to make sure that you haven't got 2 active Turbo instances. So we configure, let's go ahead, we'll set up our credentials, which is the source and destination, and we begin our data collection, which is the next item on the menu. This will take a few minutes depending on the size of your instance. This one's a fairly quick one because we do not have too many targets. We've got about a dozen. So what we can see here, we've got one warning talking about a duplicate group. If you go to the FAQs on the GitHub site, we'll show all of the installation issues you could bump into, where things like duplicate groups or groups that are unmatched. Let's move on to the next step. Now we're going to begin to migrate our unscoped targets. Again, follow the installation instructions which are available on the docs site with the link right below here. Now we can see we've got targets which are not validated or not correctly configured. In this case, I knew this was going to happen, so I wanted to make sure that we could see what would happen if we don't have a validated or active target. So we've got 3 targets which are showing an error because it's either a credential issue or perhaps not validated. In this case, these are legacy targets that I actually don't want to bring over because we're not moving them to the new installation. So that's going to be okay. So we can evaluate, make sure they're all set, uncheck any that you don't want to bring across, and now we save the changes and continue. And this will begin the process of migrating our active targets. This process can take anywhere from up to about 5 minutes up to 20 minutes, depending on the size of your installation. So you're going to want to go grab a coffee, let this run in the background, and make sure that you're using either a console session or using Screen. In fact, you can go to the Turbonomic blog and we've showed you how to actually use the Screen utility to leave an installation of a shell running in the background. So this is going to slowly step through. We can see we've got some cloud targets. Once we have our cloud targets, it's also going to get our on-premises targets. It will include APM targets and other installations. This is all done for you automatically. You can see the credentials are carried over. They're encrypted during transition. So everything is encrypted in flight. And in fact, nothing is stored in clear text. So this is a great way to ensure that we're doing a secure transfer of all of the content over to your new Turbonomic 8 installation. It's important to note that once the targets have been set up on the new installation of Turbonomic 8, we have to make sure that we let discovery run and complete validation and discovery of the entire environment before we continue on to the next step. There will be a menu warning at the end of this installation to make sure to remind you that we cannot proceed until we have everything validated. And that's because other things like groups may be dependent on objects that are carried over with the target configuration and with discovery. So we can see here, there's the note saying we should wait until we've completed our validation. Ideally, it's a minimum of 20 minutes, but ideally you want to wait about an hour just to make sure, so leave this running in the background, but do not wait for an extended period of time, like many hours or even a day, just in case there's differences that happen in the environment. So we're going to let the discovery continue. Let's pop over. We can see our installation. We can confirm this is our new Turbonomic 8 instance. We can see that we've got validation. Some are already validated, so we're fine. But we waited it out just to make sure that we know everything is complete. Let's fast forward in the time machine here, and we go forward about an hour, and here we go. So all of our targets are validated, and we're good to go. In fact, one of the targets that didn't come over has not been validated. That's because we have a credential problem, and that's okay. Again, you may bump into this. Follow the FAQs for more information. So now that we've done our updated topology information, let's go and make sure that we can run the topology and continue the discovery. We can see here, it's going to run. It'll give you some notifications about progress as it goes. This will include users, groups. In this case, you can see we've got actually a duplicate template, which is, again, something you may bump into. Follow the FAQs for more information. If you have any concerns or questions, you can always contact your Turbonomic support team, of course. Now we're going to proceed. Let's say return. And once we press return, now that we've got our installation ready, we've got our targets validated, we're going to migrate our groups that we've just collected from the source instance. Again, you can go through, we can see which ones are static, which ones are dynamic. You can scroll up and down and use the spacebar to check or unselect any. We save our changes to proceed, and we're now going to migrate our groups. This allows you to make sure that your group configurations and your scopes are carried forward to the new installation. It will take the amount of time dependent on the size of your install. In this case, it was a fairly short turn. So it'll just take a couple minutes, could take up to 15 or 20 minutes potentially, depending on the size. Now that we've migrated our groups, the next piece is we have to migrate our templates. And this is in case you're actually using deployment templates that are inside Turbo. Some of the default templates, of course, are already there, but they're going to be carried over. This allows you to migrate your custom templates. We go through that step. It's fairly quick, as we can see. And let's hit enter. And we're going to move on to the next phase, which is going to be migrating our policies. This is important, of course, because your policies drive the automation that happens inside Turbonomic. There will be cases potentially where you see policies that may not apply, depending on whether groups have been missed or not carried over, targets that have not actually been completed. We are bringing every policy forward. So again, visit the FAQs and we'll tell you exactly which policies may or may not come across during the transition. It's very easy to recreate them, and again, contact your Turbonomic support team. We can always help you through it. Now we're going to migrate the users. These are going to be your local users. If you have SSO users, they're going to be carried across, but there are no credentials to bring. This is actually going to bring over, and there's a warning here talking about your local users. Because we want to protect your security, by default, we bring over passwords and we can actually have them reset. This is ideal in a case where you don't want to have active users that are in the target environment, so you can enable them as you go. So we've migrated our users, and now we're complete. This is the chance for us to now go and just visually validate that everything's gone across okay. So we pop over into our Turbonomic 8 installation, and let's see how things look. We go to our settings page. We open our user tab and we can see, oh, there we go. So we now have our matching users, which are set based on how we had configured the source machine. We had SSO configured, so we have our SSO users are also brought across, so they're ready to go. And we can take a look at our groups. And again, what we can see is we have groups that have been populated. You're going to see at the moment everything is green because none of the groups have any targets which are showing any health issues because we're in the middle of discovery. And we'll go around exactly why that's important right now. If we wanted to go back to our source, we would, of course, confirm that we have the same groups over there and some groups which may have different targets, because if a target was missed, then potentially you may have objects or entities that are not brought across. So you can do a visual validation of your groups just to make sure that everything looks as you expect as you bring it over, and you're good to go. So the last step that we have to make sure that we take is to ensure that our Turbonomic is now working, it's active. We're seeing we've got full discovery, we've got our business applications, we've got our full stack. Now we need to turn on actions, because by default, we've disabled all actions. So open Settings, Policies, and under the Policies view, we just open up the default policy. So we just type in Global Defaults. And you can see here that our action constraints is that we've set disable all actions. All of the policies will now be active based on your policies that were brought over. So if you have automation, it's turned on. And just like that, you now have an active Turbonomic 8 instance with your users, groups, targets, and policies carried forward. We're going to wait, and we can see a couple of discovery cycles, and we now are seeing health information, and we're getting active decisions and actions available in your Turbonomic 8 instance. For more information, go to the docs.turbonomic.com, follow along for the support documentation, and of course, go to support.turbonomic.com if you have any questions or concerns.